PlayerProfiler Nation. Welcome to the latest episode of Trade Gods. I'm your host, Matty Kiwoom, joined by my fellow Trade God brethren, the morning man himself, Mr. Jason Allwine. What's going on, Jay?
Feeling good, man. Ready to head out west, tackle these AFC West teams today. We've been going division by division. It's been fun. This one should still be fun. We both had a little talk before the show. It's a little bit of a division, at least when it comes to the buys, but there's still some good ones out there. So fret not, audience. We've got a good show, and I'm feeling good as well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. This division isn't as fun in terms of buy candidates as I thought it would be. But, people in the chat last week, people leaving them comments saying, go out west, head to the AFC West. So we're going to answer those calls. We got a player to buy, two players, matter of fact, from each team in the AFC West. Make sure you're subscribed to the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Smash that like button and leave those comments. Let us know what division should we head to next. So I guess without further ado, Jay, let's hop into some AFC West buys.
Let's do it.
So I'm noticing a pattern here in how the notes kind of set up. I didn't do this on purpose, but I think we're flying the furthest west and working our way back east, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you are good with geography, then we are starting with the Los Angeles Superchargers. Jason, who are you buying from the LA Chargers?
This one was tough. Because I've been all over the place on this particular player and really all over the place on the offense. And then also you beat me to the notes and you took the guy I really wanted to talk about. And I didn't want another Jerome Ford situation. There's still lots of buys on the Chargers. And so I'm going with an expensive one, but maybe not too expensive for what the potential is. And at the very least, in our PPR leagues, I don't see much value being lost over the course of, this player's career. And that's going to be the new slot receiver for the Chargers, Ladd McConkey. Not really a lot to say that hasn't been said already about Ladd McConkey. This is a player who's a little undersized, but extremely shifty, and a really, really good route runner with projected good hands. We haven't seen much college production or anything, but a clear standout at the Senior Bowl, clear standout at the Combine, and reportedly interviewed really, really well with teams. The Chargers even, trade up in the second round to go make sure they lock him down after he falls through a little bit of the wide receiver run at the end of the first, early second. So they wanted him clearly. And I think the thing that is drawing me the most to Ladd McConkey is Jim Harbaugh, but not specifically Jim Harbaugh, specifically the fact that Jim Harbaugh decided to trade up to get Ladd McConkey instead of staying put and just taking the wide receiver that he's familiar with, Roman Wilson, either at their second pick or with their third round pick because he was still available there. Now, of course, he's not going to know that, but Roman Wilson and Ladd McConkey have almost the exact same profile, and yet Jim Harbaugh decided to go with the new face with a little bit more athleticism, a little bit more potential and ceiling that's a little untapped. A player he's familiar with, but with some more projectability, and that excites me because I would have been over the moon with Roman Wilson reuniting with Jim Harbaugh, but now we're getting a little bit more athletic Roman Wilson going to Jim Harbaugh on an offense that, is going to be run heavy. I will admit that. A lot of people are out there saying, this is going to be a run attack offense with, Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh and all the running backs. But I do just want to make one point, and that is that Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, especially in their NFL careers, but even really over the last few years in general, have had mobile quarterbacks. I mean, Greg Roman, he had Lamar Jackson. Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco, he had Colin Kaepernick. At Michigan, the only quarterback of note he had was J.J. McCarthy, but even then, he had some wheels, so they ran with him. And I mean, Shea Patterson? Like, are you going to have him pass the ball? And I don't even remember the other dudes that they had been using while he was there. I mean, it's been awful. Now there's a real quarterback there in Justin Herbert. Yes, they might be run heavy, but that's still just going to open up the pass game, whether it be play action or the fact that defenses have to stay honest. And I think that Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert, as we're already hearing rapport building at camps, and the fact that Ladd McConkey, Justin Herbert literally said that Ladd McConkey feels like a 4 or 5 year veteran already, the way he's handled this playbook. So I think they're going to have a really strong connection. I think he's going to get a ton of targets. The question that's always been hard for me to do it, I haven't drafted him in any rookie drafts, for example, is because, he goes really early, and we're all expecting to get a lot of volume, but outside of PPR leagues, that really might not mean a lot. But the ceiling could be there. Those still could be touchdowns. Those still could be some chunk plays or whatever, even if it is closer to the line of scrimmage. So I'm going to buy into Ladd McConkey at wide receiver 28 and just see what happens. I think he could probably reach into the top 20s and probably not fall too much further.
I like McConkey for sure as my number one pass catcher in this offense. Are you buying any Josh Palmer shares or Quentin Johnston shares?
I honestly am taking swings on even DJ Chark. Kiwoom.
You're going, just taking a straw here, taking a chance.
Yeah, I honestly probably should have just made my buy Justin Herbert, to be honest. I don't know why I went with Ladd McConkey. Really, my buy should have been Justin Herbert. Now,
so you're buying Justin Herbert as well, then?
Yeah, I'm hugely buying Justin Herbert. So I don't know why I didn't. I've been like really big on buying Justin Herbert recently, but I just recently also kind of started to come around on Ladd McConkey, so I guess I put him in the notes. But Justin Herbert has been a screaming buy for me in both redraft and dynasty as well. I really think that this offense is going to just be better. There might not be as much pass volume, but we haven't seen a quarterback get off to the start of a career like Justin Herbert. Last year, if it wasn't for his injury, he would have had yet another 4,000-yard season. He's just one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. And sure, they might run the ball more than they have historically, but it's still going to be just a much more efficient offense with a higher ceiling because it's not going to be run by fucking numbskulls.
Yeah. Fair. That does change things. You cannot discount that at all. There are numbskull factors at play here, improvements in that department. But I do appreciate the Christopher Nolan little inception buy here. You had a buy within the buy.
Yes.
And that's nice. So my buy, though, is going to be the running back Kimani Vidal.
Yes.
You talked about it that this is the first person that comes to mind for you, and I think it's because we understand that the similarities between him and his best comparable player on Player Profiler, Isaiah Pacheco, are so much. I mean, in terms of a late round guy with 4.46 speed, he's got the right size. In Vidal's case, he was a mega producer at Troy, 1,600 rushing yards last year. Looked good throughout the process. He's related to Hank Aaron, which means, he's got them bloodlines in terms of professional athletes just in the fam.
Yeah.
But that's not why I'm buying. I'm buying because the backfield just to me is so ambiguous. I know Daniel Jeremiah, he said in one of his latest Move the Sticks podcasts is if he played fantasy, he'd be drafting J.K. Dobbins. And I like the confidence here, but of course with injury, that doesn't matter. If they're going to give him a lot of touches and he gets hurt, it's just more for Vidal. But in terms of Vidal, Jim Harbaugh brings like a culture. Mm-hmm. He brings an ecosystem that's built on success and built on competitive players. And so far, Kimani Vidal's been competing the most. So the headlines could be there, the hype can be there. At the end of the day, Jim Harbaugh has no allegiance to anyone. He's going to give his allegiance to the running back that competes the hardest. And I think at the stages of Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins' career, Kimani Vidal might just be the best running back in terms of youth, explosion, athleticism on this team. And then I go look at some market indicators like Player Profiler's lifetime value score, and it says that you can move an old running back like an Austin Eckler or Nick Chubb for Kimani Vidal, and I'm okay still swapping in and getting some youth on my running back room. Or if you want to take the little more risk-reward approach, take a guy like Romeo Dupes, someone who's been ultra tight independent. Yeah, I love the offense, and yeah, he could repeat 5+, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns in that Green Bay offense, but he also could fall flat on his face, catch 2 touchdowns, and just kind of fall to the number 1 or number 4 receiver on this team. Mm-hmm. So if you like that little risk-reward approach, I'm moving to Romeo Doubs. Give me Kimani Vidal in hopes that he just shakes out as the number 1 running back. You mentioned that he was a candidate to be on your buy list. So anything you want to add about Vidal?
Yeah, we kind of talk about the Roman Wilson, Ladd McConkey. Kimani Vidal is a more explosive Blake Corum, and we saw how good he was in Michigan with Blake Corum, Jim Harbaugh and Corum. So I think that a running back with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman in particular is going to be pretty special. Gus Edwards is fine. He'll be there. And J.K. Dobbins, he's really explosive, but as you mentioned, has the injury concerns. It is pretty clearly going to be Kimani Vidal's backfield at some point. And I want him with the production that he had in college, with the athleticism he showed us at the Combine and at the Senior Bowl. The dude is a stud, and he has the biggest thighs I've seen in my life, and that has to mean something.
Quads mean a lot. I mean, the quads have been factors to buy players on this show in the past, and it definitely will probably happen again in the future. I would just let everyone say this to everyone. People didn't want to buy Isaiah Pacheco because of the draft capital. And now you wish you could have bought at dirt cheap prices a couple of years ago. You would have had a running back 1-2 over the last couple of years. So don't make the same mistake again this year with Kimani Vidal. Let's head to Vegas. Let's go to Sin City, my friends. Talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. Not as fun of a team, I'll be honest. But who are you buying from this Raiders offense?
Yeah, I honestly should just go ahead and say I am buying everyone on the Raiders offense. In fact, we had a little bit of a collaborative article on Player Profiler, sneaky offenses to break out in 2024, and I went with the Raiders. We saw them close out the year really, really well. The 63 points against the Chargers. They beat the Chiefs. It was a pretty good end of the season, and that was with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, who never had 300 yards or more than 2 touchdowns in a game, and was, bottom of the league in a lot of metrics. I think Gardner Minshew is going to be a little bit of an upgrade, and I just think this offense as a whole, now having a full offseason with Antonio Pierce, they have Marvin Lewis coming from Cincinnati as well for a little bit of a culture thing from back in the day, which I think is a pretty cool he's the assistant head coach. I think that's kind of fun. But also, there's just, isn't that awesome? I know. I've never brought what? Isn't that cool though? Isn't that fun?
It's kind of cool, yeah.
But the big thing is there's just so much talent on this offense. There really, really is. Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, Zamir White, Dylan Loud, Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Myers, and my buy, Davante Adams. Davante Adams is one of the best wide receivers in the league, and sure, he's 31 and a half years old. But, we talked about it a few episodes ago when I was selling Tyreek Hill, because Tyreek Hill is up at top, wide receiver 12 in Dynasty right now at 30. He's just a year older. I think that he's just a great tier down candidate. Davante Adams is for these win now teams. This is a guy who had over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns last year with terrible quarterback play, a really bad offense in general. And he actually led the league in unrealized air yards, was one of 3 wide receivers with 1,000 or more unrealized air yards. So you're telling me he had over 2,000 yards essentially left on the table last year from this offense. A ton of targets to go to him. He was actually second in target share, second in target rate, second in overall targets in general, led the league in air yard share. 44% of the Raiders' air yards were going to Davante Adams. He's a true alpha on a team that, is more than likely going to be in some negative game scripts, playing from behind, going to have a ton of volume, probably a ton of touchdowns. And we saw last year Michael Pittman have a career year. We saw Josh Downs had over 700 yards as a rookie. The tight ends were pretty incredible last year as a unit as well in Indianapolis. Gardner Minshew, say what you want for him as a ceiling player. He has a really good floor, knows how to manage an offense, and he's going to throw the ball to Davante Adams 200 times next year. So I want him at wide receiver 35 price tags while I can. If I'm win now, I'm tearing down from really any old wide receiver, namely Tyreek Hill, but even like a Diggs, maybe a Mike Evans as well, or really even some of the younger ones. Like I would take a Jaden Reed, a Brandon Ayuk. I would take some of those wide receivers and try to get some Davante Adams as well. I think he's got at least one more year left in him. And a big one.
I'm not going to disagree with you about the Raiders. It's just, for me, the only thing I'm going to preach in terms of practicing the process is if someone's going to drag you into deeper waters, I'm not swimming out, if that makes any sense. If I could buy low, if I could buy at ADP, if I could buy at cost right now in terms of market value, I'll take a shot on some Raiders players. I think Jacoby Myers might be undervalued. Javonte Adams certainly could be undervalued. Zamir White, a lot of these players are coming in with pretty good value attached to them. But I am drawing a very clear a clear line in the ground in terms of what I'm willing to give up. Yeah. You mentioned Gardner Minshew, though. That's my buy candidate. And the reason why I'm buying the Gardner Minshew is because exactly what you mentioned. In super flex leagues, you can do worse than Gardner Minshew as your second quarterback, your super flex position. Last year as a starter, we saw him be top 15 at quarterback a number of times. He cracked the top 10 on multiple occasions. He had some big bonanzas, including his QB6 performance in the first round of the fantasy playoffs last year. So Gardner Minshew can't get hot, and he's got weapons. He's going to have a pretty balanced attack, which he showed he's been pretty successful with, both Jacksonville and then last year with Indianapolis. And then, not to look way ahead, this is true sicko stuff. I do admit this isn't even July yet, and I'm looking at the playoff schedule of the Las Vegas Raiders. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't scoff there, ladies and gentlemen. I think you need to look at what it is. It's nice. 3 games indoors. At home against the Falcons, at home against the Jaguars, at New Orleans Saints. Doesn't seem all that bad to me. And if you can go ahead and look at some market indicators right now, it says, you can move kind of a boom bust young wide receiver for him. Michael Wilson, Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Shakir, all of those guys put you at the table to acquire some Gardner Minshew. So I'm doing it now, even if he's my QB4. I'm doing it now because we'll be doing a show, in November saying get him on your team now because of the playoff run.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you aren't moving him for Khalil Shakir, Rashid Shaheed, or Michael Wilson. So buy now or forever hold your peace on Gardner Minshew. Surprisingly enough, you may say to yourself, the Raiders might be the number 1 overall pick in the league. I don't think that's the worst team even in this division. We got one stinker, and then, of course, the Super Bowl champs, the Denver Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs, coming up next. Stick around. We got some more buys from the AFC West.
This episode is brought to you by PlayerProfiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help strategize where you should take players because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty Guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our Rookie Guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal.
Matty, Kiwoom, Jason Allwine, Trade Gods, going through some buys from the AFC West. Let's stop to the Mile High Stadium, the Denver Broncos. Jason, who are you buying from this team?
There are 2 players I'm especially buying, and they go hand in hand. But the big one today for everyone in our Superflex leagues, maybe even if you want to get spicy in your single QB for your bench, get some Bo Nix on your roster. I know there's been some cold water poured on him as of late, but I like it. I like it a lot. The landing spot is pretty nice. I do believe in Sean Payton a little bit more than most, and I just kind of think that Russell Wilson has just lost it, has just totally lost it. And I think that Bo Nix is the type of quarterback that fits a Sean Payton system with, getting it out quickly, having multiple different routes going on, and being a quick processor, yada, yada, yada. The thing that makes me like it most as well is the fact that they drafted his teammate from Oregon, Troy Franklin. That gives him an easier connection to lock onto. So I just want to quickly say bye Troy Franklin as well, because I think that's going to be his first read every single play. But my main reason I'm buying Bo Nix is this is a prospect that we normally love. We're talking about top 15 draft capital. We're talking about under 25 years old. We're talking about decent speed in the 80th percentile 40-yard dash with some rush yards in college to boot. And we're talking about a passer that just had 4,500 yards, 45 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. That I don't think that's ever happened in the history of college football. Like, that is an insane, insane stat line. Incredibly efficient, 77% completion percentage. That's a quarterback that you have to trust. Now, I know it took some time, and it might still take some time in the NFL, but at the very least, he's sitting right now at quarterback 22. So he's probably not going to lose too much value, and he's probably not in jeopardy to lose his job, even if he's not great. And the thing that I like the most about fantasy football is the fact that, losses don't matter. The Broncos could be absolutely shit, which just means that Bo Nix is going to pass the ball that much more because they're going to be behind. So I want Bo Nix. I think that it's really a screaming value right now. regardless of how good he is, because he's at least going to have a couple seasons like Kenny Pickett did. And I think he's probably going to end up pretty good. I think the system is solid. They have some good receivers. They're actually going to start having some cap space next season to really build around him. And he has already his best weapon from college with him. So he's already familiar with one of his wide receivers. So I mean, this is just a prospect we rarely see with a decent landing spot, great draft capital, decent enough weapons, game scripts that are probably going to favor points for the quarterback. I don't know why he's being so faded right now.
Bo Nix he just comes at a value right now. There's really no two ways about it. We talked about it. I was on the RotoWire show with our good buddy Alan Soslowski, and we talked a little Bo Nix, and he's available in the second round of rookie drafts, which is kind of unheard of for a 12th overall quarterback. Of course, we know that he might have been the 12th overall pick, but he was the 6th quarterback off the board. It's a bit of an anomaly, but getting a starting quarterback in his rookie season in round 2 of your rookie drafts makes a lot of sense. He's going, round 5, 6, 7 in Dynasty Startup, which again is nice little value on another quarterback option. So I'm not really against the idea of buying Bo Nix. I think he's coming at a fair value. I'm not overexerting myself to acquire Bo Nix, and I am also I've taken Jared Stidham. It was like my last pick in a Dynasty Startup multiple times. Just having, you never know what could happen later in the season if there's an injury to Nix. Like, I think this is Nick's job to win. I think that we can benefit from what will end up being cockamamie Zach Wilson hype, because he will look better in these mini camps because he has a better arm. He's an athletic kid. He's a bigger kid. He will look better. So there might come some fugazi hype, but it's Bo Nix. You don't take a kid 12th overall and don't give him a chance. But my buy for the Denver Broncos is Marvin Mims. The thing about Marvin Mims is he has higher draft capital. He's faster than Troy Franklin. He did show some big playability in the NFL. He was Sean Payton's first ever draft pick as a Denver Broncos head coach. So I'm just saying, don't forget about him. I don't know if he's going to pass Franklin, but the reason why he's my buy and not Franklin is because Franklin's passed him in value. He's climbed up the ranks. He's had a lot more helium. So we've seen the cost of acquiring Troy Franklin, if you didn't get him in your rookie draft, be higher. So I'm just looking at the cheaper value here for the Marvin Mims because I think their profiles are similar in how they win. And one of them is looking like the heir apparent to Cortland Sutton, if they can move on from him before the season. And the other one would be the heir apparent of Jerry Jeudy. I don't know which one I'd like more. But known downfield playmaking ability. He flashed 2 of the first 3 games of the season, then completely ghosted. He's gotten some hype this year. I like if you're looking to buy cheap, I'm moving a Khalil Shakir because I think he has a little bit more upside, unleashed upside, unlockable upside. And then a Roshan Johnson. I'm kind of sour on Roshan going into the year, so I'd move that. One trade path I've explored with the Marvin Mims is taking your Tank Dell, down-shifting, down-tiering to Mims, and acquiring a potential stud tight end. So looking at the lifetime value scores over at PlayerProfiler.com, you could engineer a trade where you acquire an Evan Ingram or a Kyle Pitts plus a Marvin Mims. And I think Mims' game is a bit of a Tank Dell arbitrage in that he's going to be looking at hyper-efficient numbers if he's going to be successful, in my opinion, with Nico Collins being there, with Stephon Diggs now being in town. I feel like Tank Dell's going to have to succeed on high efficiencies. And I think that's a lot of the way Marvin Mims will win. So I think you can get a little bit of value arbitrage and then add an absolute difference maker at tight end, whether it be, pick your flavor. You want to win now approach with Evan Ingram, or you want that kind of longer-term plan in Kyle Pitts. So that's a down tier that I've kind of explored when it comes to Marvin Mims. But in terms of this offense as a whole, I think there will be value to be had. Because, like you said, they might suck. The defense isn't that good. If this defense was more improved, I'd be a little bit more nervous. But if they're going to be playing in comeback modes with the Raiders or the Chiefs, obviously, and other teams throughout the NFL, Bo Nix is going to have to chuck it. And maybe finally Peyton feels a little bit more comfortable, like you said, quick reads, get the ball out quick, have a kind of an up-tempo type offense. Maybe Bo Nix can supply that, and he's kind of the boat or the tide that rises all boats. So some sneaky value for the Denver Broncos, but not all exciting. I'll admit, wasn't that exciting picking candidates here, but there is a little bit of value to be had. Now, I don't know if there's really any value to be had on this next team, but there's a hell of a lot of hype and a hell of a lot of excitement. So let's head over to the reigning, defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Who is your buy from the Kansas City Chiefs?
I really don't know. I really don't know. I am looking and looking and looking, and everyone feels a little too expensive. I like your pick, so I'll save that one for you. I did eventually decide on Rashee Rice, and I still don't know if I feel great about it. So I'm gonna say if you could get him for a 25-second, that's where I'm at. If you can get him for that 25-second, go ahead and do it. If he falls in your startup, just go ahead and press the button. And just see what happens here. Because, I mean, he's coming off 900 yards and 7 touchdowns as a rookie, was 28th in fantasy points per game, and especially came alive towards the end of the season, had over 100 targets, and, was a darling. I mean, we got very, very excited about him. And yes, all the off-the-field issues are there. But as we've learned from the NFL, they do not care about off-the-field issues. They simply don't. And the longer this process goes on, the less spotlight is on Rashee Rice, the more time for him to get, just better in the public. And so he might see a suspension and probably will, but at the very least, he's going to have a very long career, more than likely, at least a decently long career, a couple seasons of football on one of the best offenses in the league, with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I just want Rashee Rice, and I want to get him while he's cheap. He is, still more expensive than Hollywood Brown, but cheaper than Xavier Worthy. He's a wide receiver 33, so I understand it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow if he does get suspended. But I think when he's out there playing, you're going to be happy you have him. And I mean, we go through it all the time in fantasy football. Sometimes a player gets hurt and you don't have him. Just kind of treat this the same way if he gets suspended. Figure out a contingency plan. Go pick up Justin Watson or something. I don't know. It'll be fine. You'll be fine if he gets suspended. But he's going to be playing football, and he's going to be pretty good. So I won't want Rashee Rice while I can get him.
It seems like right now when you're talking about the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes' stock is up.
Yeah.
Isaiah Pacheco's stock is up.
It's way up.
Hollywood Brown's stock is up. Xavier Worthy's stock is up. And then you have Rashee Rice where, you're going to have to catch the falling knife. But all of a sudden you make this trade and you're like, like you said, you make arrangements to deal with 6 games of no Rashee Rice, and then you see the NFL's ruling comes to 4. You get reduced to 3. And you're like, hey, I can make do for 3 weeks. And then Rashee Rice, he did so much of what they've been dying for, a guy that can make plays after catching the slot. How does that look in this new look, high-octane race car type of offense with the Kansas City Chiefs? I don't know, but I mean, imagine a guy like Rashee Rice with the Dolphins over these last couple of years, because it's like 2 teams have been looking for the other piece of the puzzle. The Dolphins have been looking for that dynamic slot player, and the Chiefs were looking for outside race cars. They find dynamic speed, and the Dolphins still don't really find that slot guy. So I guess we will see it this year. So I'm with you on the buying the Rashee Rice. The guy that I'm buying, it's still Travis Kelce, but I do need to kind of sound this alarm a little bit. Every market indicator, whether it be PlayerProfiler, Keep Trade Cut, wherever you go, indicate that Travis Kelce's value is absurdly low. And then when you go to your league mate who has Travis Kelce and engage in these conversations, you don't get, it doesn't match what the market indicator says. Most, you look at the platforms like here at Player Profile, we have like tight end 10 in Dynasty. Similarly, across the industry, you'll see those type of rankings, those type of kind of projections, if you will, in terms of the rankings. But your league mate is not just giving away Travis Kelce.
No.
And it's mainly because I've been trying to, I've been trying to buy all over the place. And I still think he's a buy because there are ways to get in the door right now on a guy like Travis Kelce, especially if the guy in your league is like, oh, he's a Swiftie, he's in London and he's playing there. Out there, I'll take him because he just signed an extension. Yep. He's saying he's playing until the wheels fall off. They're going for number 3, so he's going to give it every bit of his all as he's ever had. And then again, I'm just using the market indicators. I know they're probably a bit fugazi in terms of practice and process to what you see in projection, but if you can move a Schultz or a Mayer or a Komet plus a 24 third, That's that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
And if that gets asked to be a second, I'm still pulling the trigger. I still think Travis Kelce, who last year was tight end 1 on a points per game basis, has enough juice, and now we'll have enough holes in the zone with Rashee Rice, with Hollywood Brown, with Xavier Worthy. It's just, I feel like it will open up in such ways, and the numbers should suggest that. I can't wait to see it in practice. I can't wait to see it in training camp, but how this dynamic looks and see what this looks like as Travis Kelce can kind of just pick the holes of the zone when everyone's sprinting downfield having to cover 2 guys with 4.3 or better speed. Also, and this is where I'll get a little bit excited. This is why I wanted to put this out there because, again, market indicators suggest he could come cheaper. I think you might have to bring a little bit more to the table. I'm moving my Jermaine Burtons, Josh Downs, Malachi Corley's right now. These guys who don't have the track record of production for a tight end with the most track record for production. So I'm buying me some Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Get Kelce. It's Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I know. It feels like we're going to be one of the biggest no-brainers. And it's funny because the redraft league, we're starting to get the underdog data, and there's, strong correlation with the underdog drafting ADP to kind of how redraft starts to play out. We're already seeing Kelce go round 3 to round 4 of redraft. So our redrafters out there are like, what do you mean Travis Kelce is cheap? What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, that is the big discrepancy of dynasty versus redraft. But it's great nonetheless. And this was another great show. AFC West buys. Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, and Chiefs. We covered it all. Jason, let the people know where they can find you and let them know what you're working on.
Yeah, you can find me every morning here on Player Profiler, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, wake and take, discussing news and other fantasy football stuff. And you can follow me on social media at JFootballWine. And also make sure you are following Player Profiler everywhere you get your social media as well.
Love it. Love it. The morning show, wake and take, the best show in the morning of fantasy football all across the planet Earth. You can find me on Twitter at Matty Kiwoom. Make sure you are subscribed to the Player Profiler YouTube channel, the Player Profiler News YouTube channel. Leave a like or hit the like button. Leave a comment. Let us know what division you want to see next. Trade Gods every Wednesday. The Game Plan every Saturday. Hurdle every Tuesday. Futurecast Blue Chips. And if you just can't get enough, head over to the draftrankings.com. He's Jason Allwine. I'm Matty Kiwoom. We, of course, are the Trade Gods, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.